Ready for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the roll call show that all are present, except Councilman Dimick, and he is notified early that he wasn't going to be able to make this, and it's an excused absence. We do have a quorum. Half cent tax development. Do we have some gentlemen here representing that? Would we wanna? We have questions for them, or do we wanna? I think we've covered quite a bit of this already. Are there some? Would you like to talk maybe a little bit about the survey that we've done, that you've done first? Please step up and introduce yourselves.
Honor, members of the council, name's Kevin Kershisnik with Ford Fremont County PAC and FAST Fremont Air Service Task Force.
Hi, Tim Nichols, Director of Wind River Transportation Authority, Administrator for Fremont County Association of Governments.
So what we went to the county commissioners and some of the other elected bodies, and they had asked, have you done a survey with the electorate to see where they stand on various issues? And we had received information through FCAG, which was kind of a bottom up to the top elected official. We said, this is what we believe is happening. Therefore, we're asking for the modification of the MOU. And that's when I had come out here and talked to you about that several months ago. And so the county didn't have anything done. So we, as the PAC, decided, well, we're going to go out and have the survey done. So we engaged County 10, and they had, take it, yeah, that'd be good. And so this is the summary sheet. So they sent it out. It ran for 2 weeks. Oh yeah, perfect. All right, great. And then you have the other one for Shoshoni as well. That'll be the next handout.
That's what I was just.
Perfect. Okay. So if you look at this, the first sheet, this is a summary. And what we did is the survey ran for 2 weeks. And then also we had some surveys that we're taking in the Riverton area that were compiled as well. So we had a total of 677 respondents. Majority, if not all those, were registered voters. I think all but 3 were registered voters. So we had 674. But we said, all right, they're still residents. They're just not registered voters. We'll take the comments. And you can see on the bottom there, that's 3.4% of the total electorate that had responded, which is a statistically significant survey. And then we color coded this. So down here is showing 80% or higher, and the lighter green is 50% or higher. That's the color code, the legend for what's there. And what's interesting is if you look at that coming across, we said, okay, was the tax beneficial to the county in the past for the past 3.5 years? 63% said yes. Over 80% said that commercial air service and ground transportation are important. Thing to point out on this survey is that we gave you options of strongly agree, strongly disagree, or disagree. So we could really see where the electorate were. Didn't allow people to take a neutral position on this. We really wanted to see what was important and what wasn't. And so you can see the breakout, but we've grouped these together, and the numbers down there, that 80% I was showing, that means either agreed or strongly agreed with that question. Then the economic development portion of the projects, how they were funded, you can see that majority of the people disagreed, 49%, 48.7 said, okay, that we agree with it. 51.3 disagreed, said that the taxes for those particular projects were not used exactly the way they wanted or to the full benefit. Then we said ambulance, how important is that? And you can see countywide, 71.6% said that ambulance, if we funded this with a half cent, would be important for us as the electorate. And then the last column here is, would you support the renewal of that for another 4 years? And basically looking at the numbers, it's a coin toss. That's where we're at this point, with the respondents here. Then we got information there about where the residents resided. In this survey, 4 of them didn't respond. They just said, you guess, didn't provide a response, et cetera. But majority of them did, so we could classify them as county, reservation, Riverton, Lander, Shoshoni, et cetera. And so then that's the next sheet that you have, and that is for the town of Shoshoni. And these are the responses that you had received. Might be they in there, yeah. Yep. Might be more in here, I'm not sure. And then you could see there's 10 respondents from Shoshoni. And again, we didn't ask for names. It's anonymous. We said, all we want is information from the electorate. Where do you stand today? And pretty much similar. You had strong support for commercial air service, ground transportation, and ambulance. 8 out of 10, 80% for those 3. The economic development projects and the renewal of the tax were both split at 50-50. And so that's kind of interesting. So these are the 2, this is the result of the surveys that we had completed. And we have this information, and we'll be going to the county to talk to them again about that and see if we can get concurrence on the modified MOU. So when we as the PAC go to talk to the electorate, we can say, this is how the monies will be allocated this time, not maybe this, maybe that.
Yeah, I thought this was, pretty interesting. And then, like you said, that was quite a response. I mean, that's actually a good survey. I mean, you see them doing for the state of Wyoming, they'll do 200 people. That was a great one, and say how we're going to vote.
Right.
But this is, I thought, got a pretty good turnout. It was, they're against Shoshoni, but the county wide was also really close also. We're just exactly 50-50 on the response. Whether the citizens approve of moving us forward.
Yeah.
I think there's, a few questions. It's, I think it was in the front page on the paper. Anybody read what was put in? Anybody catch the Riverton Ranger? Not too much, but the Riverton was. They had some concerns. It wasn't unanimous that the county and Du Bois did not approve. The county was 3-2, and we're going to be
3-2
talking
against.
and try to
Correct.
get some more definition on exactly why, because part of this that would go approximately $800,000 to the county to help them with their ambulance,
Right.
which
With the modified MOU, that's correct,
Right.
based on fiscal year 24 taxes.
and
Yep.
and when are they gonna quit the ambulance altogether? I don't know. I really didn't understand it.
That's my fear, is county's gonna back out on the ambulance like they did the airport.
Yeah,
And whoever made this comment about, I believe the county should implement a half-cent sales tax just for the ambulance service. Healthcare will always increase, will eventually swallow the entire economic funding. So you off the top of your head, how much does the ambulance cost right now, the county?
So the information that we got from the county treasurer and the commissioners was this fiscal year, a little over 1.8 million.
We'll say 2.
That's fine. It's going up and they did concur that it's going up each year.
Right. Okay, and how much does this economic development tax bring in?
So for fiscal year 24, it brought in 4.4 million. And with the modified MOU, the allocation we were proposing was 20%, which ended up being 880,000 towards the ambulance service. And then the remaining million would be paid for by the county to make up that 1.8, 1.9 million.
Yeah, it's always gonna go up, and so like, you know,
All right.
I just don't see this tax because of cost of medicals is always gonna go up. Will we be able to keep this? I mean, because the towns will be losing more and more of their economic development money.
Mhm.
You know, that's where I'm coming from. And I know whoever wrote this thought, I thought that's a good thought. You know, have another half cent sales tax. You know, 4.5 million would pay for an ambulance.
It would. Yeah, and the options there could be special purpose, right? Because we have the 1% general for the roads. We have the half cent economic development, and there's also the special purpose that you could do for that. The other thing that the county was talking about is possibly doing a property tax, a district, which would be really the whole county. Anybody that owns property in the county is paying a couple extra mills, and that would cover the expense of the ambulance. And we said, well, we'd rather see it underneath the sales tax versus a property tax.
I agree with the sales tax because for what do we pay for our 3 meals and our fire department? 12,000, 15,000?
12,000.
I mean, for Shoshoni, it's nothing. Out of, you know,
Mhm.
for 2 million.
Right.
So the sales tax would be, in my mind, a more efficient way to fund it.
Mhm.
Yes, and that's what we think as well, because tourists pay part of that, businesses pay part of that, you know, it's not
Renters,
all. Yep.
Everybody else, not
Exactly.
just, right,
And it doesn't
Much
apply to
better
food, it doesn't apply to medicine, so the staples, you know, are not taxed for
Right.
citizens.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand that counties against this. So the sales tax is a much fairer tax, especially if the people vote to have it.
That was my question. Why did the county and Du Bois, what was their reasoning for a no vote?
There we go. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So I can speak to that a little bit. In summary, the county commission's concerns rested mainly in the proposition of redistributing that 70% in a different method than what was specified on the ballot. With some clarity, we were able to kind of justify that it's not in any way misleading the voters, it's just specifying in very specific wording what that 70% will be allocated for, which the data from the survey supports the concern from the public in that those grants to individual entities are the main point of tension. So this modified MOU in their concern should further address public concern. So their concern rested mainly in one that it was housed within FCAG, was a mentioned concern, and could be modified through FCAG. And then the other was that it was perceived to be pork on a bill. And so that was the county's concern. Du Bois's concern can be summarized in that they would rather use the 70% fund for solely ambulance service instead. So the modified MOU as it's presented is a very communal established way of using the sales tax to benefit those entities and siloed economic development projects that can be beneficial to the entire county. So does that answer your question?
so if we apply this money and it's passed, can you guarantee that Shoshone's gonna get an ambulance? Because we cover all clear past the county line. And your golden hour is gone if you come from Riverton, just in getting to the scene.
And that's one of the reasons that, you know, we got our ambulance to trying to get it certified, because we got no love at all from the county commissioner to give us an ambulance. Even we asked if they could station a used one that they're not you know, a spare one they don't really have in use. And, eventually, first they said no, but when they found out we were serious and Chris spoke very well of what we were planning to do and could do, they offered to rent us one. And it wasn't inexpensive. So,
Well, we got one donated.
yeah, so we got one, yeah.
State come do their final inspection, still waiting. Hopefully it'll be this month. And then we'll have a certificate of business license basically to operate the ambulance. So there's still something here.
But it's, you know, go ahead. No, but you know, when we had incidences where sporting events where we didn't have an ambulance on site and we had kids get injured. You know, that's really stuff like that, you know, really not acceptable, you know, I don't know, the business model, what they're gonna do.
Well, my concerns with the ambulance right now is that when there's certain calls, we're on one ambulance or two ambulance in service, and they bring one from Du Bois down to cover.
Yeah.
And then the other medics, some they don't have medics, they don't want to come because they're not getting paid unless they go on runs. Now they'll come do a civil or a standby, because they get paid. They don't get paid. And the way the whole framework of this has been built is does not work in a rural county, and requires some kind of other way to do it. And I don't think that the way it's gone is.
No,
Uh,
please go ahead.
Thank you, member. Thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of circle back to that question of the county as well, and to answer your question is that I myself can't guarantee it. I don't represent the county in any way, and so I can't speak on their behalf of what they can and cannot offer. I do know that as the MOU recommends, these dollars will help alleviate some of that burden of the additional cost. So what they're capable of doing with that is up to them to determine. I can speak on behalf of ground transportation all day long, more than happy to do so. And also just consideration that you know, the data that was presented in the survey was very supportive of that initial claim from the PAC, and that without a modification to the MOU and kind of centralizing around these areas of interest for the public, it is potential to put the tax in jeopardy for everybody who's a recipient of the funds. So it's kind of something to consider and something that was very telling in the data that we reviewed.
The ambulance service distribution. If that tax is being used for ambulance, does it have to go through the county? If we've got our own ambulance, why can't we keep a little portion of that to support our ambulance? What would that take? Because they're not going to supply us with an ambulance. I mean, they can give us lip service, but ain't going to happen. There is a real need for it.
I can speak, Mayor, I can speak on behalf of Fremont County Association of Governments, who's in a similar situation with ground transportation funds, where they're the hosts of those dollars, but recently kind of reached an arrangement. I think it was in December or January, the specific date, where we could utilize those funds to benefit individuals that were not receiving the benefit of WRTA services. So ground transportation funds are now finding their way to ground transportation entities with recognition that we don't want to duplicate services here or there. I can't speak on behalf of the county, but I can say that FCAG has done a good job of leading by example of how we can reach an arrangement of similar fashion.
So there is an avenue whether or not it can be navigated.
FCAG was able to do so with the ground transportation funds.
It was, yeah, it was Du Bois. Wasn't, their senior center, but they needed help with their busing. And they just hadn't worked out a way, the WRTA for to provide that, so Du Bois requested and received an agreement from FCAG to retain their money instead of sending it in? Is that the way?
The specific agreement, Mayor, if I might, was to be the recipients of their exact 0.5% allotment. So
Right.
the way the arrangement will work is FCAG is still the host of those dollars. So it does need to be at least distributed to FCAG to account for properly, and then it's redistributed to the entities that are the recipients of it.
But I would, that's something that probably, would be an avenue for Shoshoni and the ambulance, I would think.
'Cause that's the only way we're gonna get one.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think it's important for Du Bois to have an ambulance
Oh, yeah.
up there too. But I think, what was the numbers they used for what the ambulance cost in Du Bois? It was 400.
Yeah, it was 20% of the cost and 6% of the population to service
Yeah.
people.
I think it was around $400,000 or.
Yeah, 20% of, 2 mils, so.
Yeah,
just under
close to that.
400,000. Yeah, 380.
Close to that, that's what it costs the ambulance service up there, but they are remote, we're not as far away from everything as they are, but they definitely, because first, our officers are many times first at the scene if it's only the Trona County line or towards the canyon.
We've done a lot of stuff that they to do when they got here, including CPR, AD, wound care. I mean, a lot of stuff's already done for them. Some of our officers are already EMTs. And they're not operating at capacity, but they're providing first aid service. But Shoshoni paying $12,000 to the county for an ambulance isn't gonna make or break the ambulance service in Fremont County, but it would, if we were able to retain that here, which we are operational, that would make or break us being able to operate a small ambulance here in Shoshone. If that was something that, once operation, that money could be directed to that.
I'd say regarding the taxes we just talked, precedent has been set. So I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't apply for that back to the county saying that's what you'd like to do with your ambulance funds. But again, I'm not making the decision.
Right, but I mean, I'm just saying $12,000 or whatever our share would be for that is not.
I don't want to quite
consequential
any
in the
million.
grand scheme, but for our small aspect here, it's actually very possible.
Could be, very beneficial for our community. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of address that too, from an FCAG perspective, it was a very similar situation where those dollars in an FCAG account didn't seem like much, but they were very impactful in the community they came from, and FCAG recognized that. So we highlight the precedent that was set kind of with that arrangement agreement and unity really amongst the community in order to do that. And we would certainly hope that suit's followed. If you have, I'd be more than happy to share ground transportation information. I've got a 5-year plan for you. If you want to review that too, as kind of part of this modified MOU, what it can accomplish for the town of Shoshone with those additional funds attributed.
Well, technically, our ambulance would be ground transportation.
Yeah, I was EMT
It's taking all my self-control not to respond to that.
and many times we had people who needed to get to Riverton call up and say, I'm having a heart attack. I need a ride to the hospital. And they got a ride to the hospital. They were checked out and they walked out the door as we were leaving. And we're definitely ground transportation.
Yeah, I've heard that many a time.
One thing whenever transit we have with Tim, he's actually a transportation specialist. That's what he's done for years, and that's his specialty. So he's developing routes and trying to make it more service friendly to the whole county.
You guys see a way forward on getting a county and Du Bois to agree on this? At a 50-50 or 52-48%, I'm kind of curious on it, and voters being in favor of it. Division ain't gonna help.
I can touch and Kevin can follow up on that that's kind of where FCAG's discussion is at right now as well. We have, we're scheduling the agenda for Tuesday now that we have this data. Again, it's very convincing data. It shows exactly where the electorate is at. And so with having this, those claims that were previous are no longer unsubstantiated. They're supported by data. And so we're hopeful that the county will be receptive to this information and reconsider their vote in support of. It's very evident that the public is not okay with the way those 70% were being allocated present or previously. And so what we're recommending fulfills all of the guidance that the public just gave us. So we are hopeful that the county may reconsider their vote as a result of this survey data.
Does FK, since they're the host of this money, do they review each individual unit's expenditures of these funds?
Thank you, actually. A point of clarification, if I might, FCAG is not the host of all the 0.5% dollars. They're just the recipient of the ground transportation dollars. The way the actual collection works is that all the sales tax is collected within the state, and then it is sent to the entities based on population. And then it's broken out per percentage and then sent to the entities like FCAG or retained within the county or the cities. To be utilized as it's been specified. That's part of what the MOU helped provide in the first round was those guidelines and parameters of how these dollars would be handled initially. And so those guiding words are still there of exactly how the funds will be handled and where they're spent. So the exact accounting of the dollars would be with each entity of where they went. The town of or city of Riverton, city of Lander, where those checks went. The only thing FCAG can speak to is the accounting of the ground transportation dollars that they were the recipients of.
Town of Shoshoni sends the checks out. We receive the taxes, we send the checks out. We retain the share that we were supposed to get for economic development.
Right, yeah, so the.
That was the 70%.
That's right. Of the 30, 10% goes
Yeah.
to FCAG for ground.
Yes,
And then the 20% for commercial air goes to the city of Riverton
right.
to administer. And that's used all for the minimum revenue guarantee, nothing for operations. It also states in the MOU that none of the entities can take these funds, put them into their general fund and start using them for pet projects. They have to be economic development. Definition again is retaining or increasing jobs or a net inflow of cash into the community. It has to meet one or both of those criteria.
There's been some argument that they didn't believe the ambulance fits that. But if you're trying to recruit people to businesses, or anybody even live here, you don't have ambulance service. You don't have health care. I mean, it's definitely economic development, I believe, fits the description that's laid out in the MOU. Another thing of this MOU, I think it's actually clarifying where the money's going. It's just the opposite of trying to do it. It's saying this is what we want to do with the funding. And I've heard people say, well, this is what kind of sneaky stuff with this. Yeah, it's saying this is what we want to do, and we're putting it out to the public that this is the way we want to move forward. I think it was a new program. I think there was probably some missteps maybe on some of it that didn't go well, but I think we're figuring it out. Everybody is.
And it's public record, so if you want to see how the funds were spent by a certain municipality, the county, you can request those. And I've done that for various entities. I made a public record request and I've received the documents, the contract between the municipality and the entity. So I can verify there's clawbacks in there, et cetera. You can do the same thing, I'm sure, with WRTA for the funds and how they were allocated and for FAST or for the commercial air service through the city of Riverton.
Is one question's been brought up a couple times is the second flight. Then the benefits that's received on the second flight and if we don't spend the extra money on that, what would happen with could we just live with the first flight? And there's discussion on how it's essential that the second flight is to economic development for us.
Mhm.
Could you address that?
Sure, Mayor. Yeah, so from FAST perspective, we looked at that and the way that the agreement works today is it's a capacity purchase agreement through the state of Wyoming. So Wyoming Aeronautics negotiates the deal with SkyWest. Says, hey, here's the best deal that we can get for commercial air service for 4 airports: Gillette, Sheridan, Riverton, and Rock Springs. So we're in this group, which is a good thing because I truly believe if we were a standalone airport, we would likely not have commercial air service today. They would look at us and say, I can take the same crew, pilot, co-pilot, flight attendant, and I can service a 150-seat aircraft instead of a 50-seat aircraft. Economically, it makes no sense. But the state has negotiated the deal and they bring that to us and they say, okay, you accept it or you don't. And the reason they put the 2 flights in there is for the convenience of the flyer. Because with the 1 flight, all you have is you leave at 5:30 in the morning and you can come back in at 10 at night. There's people that are trying to catch different blocks heading west. There's people that need the additional flight. We lost, we call it, airline leakage. So we had a lot of people going to Casper because we did not have the afternoon flight. What we saw when we've instituted the afternoon flight, the 2 flights a day, is the load factor, meaning the number of passengers on the plane, has increased for both flights. Obviously, the afternoon's a new one, but it's higher than what it was before. And the morning flight has gone up by about 10 points. So that helps us reduce the MRG overall. So right now, it's a good thing. We'd like to keep that. If you say, okay, Riverton, Fremont County, what we want to do with Central Wyoming Regional Airport is only take 1 flight a day. SkyWest may say, maybe. They may say, if you don't want the 2 flights, you're out. We'll service the other 3 airports. So it could be an all or nothing deal if we decide to do that. But that's the situation that we're looking at from FAST perspective. We're grateful to have that because we have options for flyers. People can stay here without having to travel to Natrona County, Teton County, somewhere else to fly out.
And that was, the biggest complaint I've heard about their services. It was the 1 flight out. And I talked to people I know that actually would drive to Casper and do that because they couldn't get the second flight. And that's the biggest complaint I've heard about the airport personally myself, from people.
Yeah, and I know when I'm traveling for business, I mean, I got back in on the West Coast, come back into, or East Coast, come back over. I land in Denver at noon and I got to wait 10 hours, 9 to fly out. DIA is fun and all, but I'd much rather be at the office or home with the family, and have that option in the afternoon is a plus.
How much extra does it cost to get the second flight? What in dollars and cents, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so the cost it'll be double,
Okay,
basically,
so-
right? Because it's a block hour charge
Right, okay.
and that's what they set. Yep.
You don't
and-
get a discount on the second.
No, we tried.
Okay.
Wyoming Airlines did, yeah. So it's double on that side. And then the fuel cost fluctuates based on what the fuel costs are for that day when they fill up. Yeah, that's what that is.
Okay. Anybody got any more questions about any of that?
That, fast group block negotiated by the state deal that you'd mentioned,
Mhm.
that, is this new or you just didn't mention that before?
Or
Oh, when we were talking about this earlier, nobody ever said anything about that.
the capacity purchase agreement?
Yeah, with the group block rate negotiated by the state and all that. I think that's valuable information.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, it's always been the case. And
Oh.
if we didn't mention it, we were
Nope.
remiss. That's our fault. If
Oh,
we
no,
did-
it's all right. It
Um,
kind of changes perspective. It's like, so. Yeah, I didn't realize it was a group negotiation. It's like, well, if you want in on it, you can be in on it, and if not, you're on your own.
Yeah, because, and it's
That
close to
wasn't,
my
prop-
heart. you know.
I didn't feel that was properly explained at our previous discussion, which is, I mean, it's
Yeah.
what it is, but it kind of makes a little bit more sense now.
All right.
The
why that
need
is.
for with the second flight, it's like I could argue that either way, but if it's a take it or leave it deal negotiated by the state in a group, then it's kind of a.
Take or leave it.
Yeah.
It's take the whole thing or leave the whole. thing.
Yeah, right.
Right,
And,
so
and-
that-
and they sweeten the pot by saying, okay, if you take the deal, we'll pay 60% of the MRG. You only have to pay 40.
Well,
Right.
that's valuable information, so I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, as well, and so we do that, and it's fast. We've always complained about that, saying, okay, the only variable we can control in this equation, 3 variables, we can just control the emplanements. A little bit of the revenue side. I can't control what the costs are. I can't control what the MRG is going to be. So we did that. And then I went, next step is, I said, okay, well, how's the state doing? Right? Are they doing a good job negotiating? So I went and compared it to the federal program, which is EAS, Essential Air Service. And the Essential Air Service airports are paying this amount. We're paying 70% in the state of Wyoming. So I'd say they're doing a remarkable job of negotiating those contracts, even though the rates are doing this each year. They're doing a good job from a national perspective.
That's good information. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
You know, it-
I'm gonna switch to a tangent. Casper, Charter County dropped their, because they are not in this group, their ESG. Their
Yeah,
essential air
CPA,
service.
they're not capacity purchase agreement, right?
Okay,
But they're flying, they wouldn't fly at risk. So the airline, I think it's Delta, said, all right, we'll fly, but you have to guarantee our costs. So that's the MRG, right? This is what it's going to cost you. This is what your revenue is. Anything remaining, you're going to make us whole. And then they said, okay, we'll do that. The county commissioners came back to your point and said, no, we're not going to pay that. So they're going to lose that flight is what's going to end up happening.
so. That's what I'm afraid to hear is could happen someday that. You know, the county did it with the ambulance service at one time.
Yeah, they did. See if I can find this on it. This is the air service. Do you have the air service? Oh, here it is. So this is, I'll just share this graph with you. This is information we get from FAST, but this shows the historical 20-year employments. And if you look at that, interesting. So the big dip airline was going pretty well. It dipped down here. This is when Great Lakes was here, remember? And the
Right,
reliability
yeah.
dropped and we had all kinds of business problems. So they dropped down here and FAST was formed pretty much in 15 saying, how do we save commercial air service? And then we were able to get Denver Air Connections in. Remember with the boutique air, the
Yeah.
380 service, did a great job, full-size candy bars, but you had to go get your luggage. So trade-offs. And it grew. It said, okay, we have a market. Then what happened is it went forward and we got SkyWest, which then had the interline and the code share agreement. So your bags were transferred, you get credit for the miles, and then it started to go up. This drop right here was COVID. So that was April of 20, when there were more days in the month than we had passengers in April. There's 27 passengers. So it was pretty dire at that point. Then it started to come back up. We went to here. Then this is when they dropped us back to 1 flight a day. So you can see when it went from this peak down to here, that's because we went to 1 flight a day. We lost that flexibility. People were going elsewhere. We had a ton of leakage. Now, right here at the end, this is where we see the second flight. And this is really just the last month. So that's the month of June where you see that spike back up there. 2,000 enplanements per month. The other thing that does for us is it gets us over 10,000 enplanements for the year. Then we get $1 million from the federal government for capital improvements for the runway, facility, et cetera, that we'd only normally get 200,000. So a lot of things are happening here because of this. A lot of incidental economic development benefits. Yeah, so that's that. And then you can just see it on the back, just shows enplanements year over year. You can see that, and with the uptick on the red, that's when we had the 2 flights a day. That's why FAST is pretty excited about having the 2 flights and continuing to go forward. We expect to see maybe not that type of a slope, but still increase, around the 2,000 per month.
Mhm.
And we're just shy of that here in July as well.
Mayor, I can also add from a ground transportation perspective, the 2 flights a day caught us a little off guard. Our shuttle reservations to and from that airport have increased quite a bit. So much so where it's pushed our capacity. So we're trying to match that capacity, but it did take us off guard. So the usage is evident.
Well, it's, Du Bois, they're. They're just, they're far more remote. And they've been using the airport in Jackson for a long time, and it does have more flexibility for them. I don't know if it's any cheaper. Cause I know our rates, we've had friends flying, typically they've been less than out of Riverton than they are in Casper. Plus you don't have to drive and parking's free here.
Yes.
But, and Du Bois, but I think there's some win for them because but they were 5-0 against, is that right? Was Du
Yeah.
Bois 5-0?
It was unanimous against.
You're right, so, but, they're getting some benefit from ground transportation. And if it damages the chance of this getting passed, I know the new MOU that it's open and explains where the money will go instead of not. I think that's a positive thing. I do. But like I said, there could be a possibility to get some help with our ambulance, and that could help everybody out. This that lives in this part of the neck of the woods. I appreciate it. Any more questions? We missed anything?
Well, sir, the only other thing that I thought originally I thought your airport presentation sucked and it was not something I was really in favor of, but I didn't want to rock the boat. But with the way you pointed out some things today was very useful and it's pretty hard to argue with. So I thought maybe it was just more information coming into you. I don't know, but it was much clearer understanding of how it'll help and why. But I thought it was great and it's some good information to argue your case for you. The only other concern I've heard is like some of the municipality distribution. I don't know if there's a way to get more clear or more definite guidelines put out for the municipalities on their distribution.
Well,
I don't know.
The problem with that, Jake, is because it is each municipality's funding. And they have had to, draw up their own, and then the county. We've all developed, everybody's developed
Their own.
their own plan with the guidance of economic development. It's gotta fit into the guidance of economic development to require, and they talked about, about one thing, we could pick apart everybody's, this or that, but the county won't allow to work together with it happened in Du Bois on a daycare center, but they won't allow, if they put money in, then the municipalities can, and I think this new MOU encourages cooperation between entities that was not there, but the county actually, it's against their policy. Like if there's something that coming up here, well, Shoshoni we didn't have enough money to fund it. And the county, well, they could kick in X amount, we could work together on the project, and it could be the Riverton and the county here. Or even with this new one, it could be Riverton and Shoshoni. I think the mandate, it has to be done, but I believe it encourages that. Would that be a right representation of that?
Yes, Mayor, it would.
So we would have a reduction in what we have available for economic development, but that might lend that we could work together with another municipality or the county, because we all are part of Fremont County here. All of us were inside and give the county, they did offer to help Du Bois. substantial, but it wasn't enough, and it had some strings attached, if I understood it properly. That where it just didn't hit all the right spots, but the county did. But if they would allow the municipality to join in, that would have been able to, that would work. And so there's that could be an advantage for us also one.
So if Du Bois won't budge and the county won't budge, then where does that put things?
Well, we could move forward on a 5-2 vote. And it's binding to all. We're just trying to, I think, do our best we got a meeting the 6th. The 8th. Okay, the 8th.
FCAG meeting on the eighth.
No, 6th, the county
The
commission.
6th is the county.
That's what I'm
Yes,
talking
yes.
about. 6th, we have a meeting with the county commissioners on the 6th. And we're gonna, armed with this new information.
Yep.
We're gonna have a discussion and just see, you know, why. Cause this will benefit the county, I believe, more than, we all live in the county, so it benefits all of us, but it benefits the county's budget considerably, over $800,000 should. And help towards the ambulance, which I think we all agree the ambulance is a good thing. You know, and you know, and then Du Bois is, you know, they're saying they are getting ground transportation up, so that's part of it. And then they do need an ambulance that costs a lot of money. Go ahead, Tim.
If I might, excellent pivot point for just a quick second.
You bet.
A lot of Du Bois hesitation too is their unfamiliarization with public transportation, at least provided by WRTA. I took it as
Yes.
kind of a personal challenge in the first year here. I'm only 8 months into the position. We finally introduced Du Bois to some consistent public transportation just on Friday. We kind of centralized it around their Friday night rodeo. But an interesting thing came up is we also, while we were up there in that area, we provided transportation to the municipality up and down the main thoroughfare. And the usage actually started to increase.
So you're saying you're running a route to their Friday night rodeo?
That is correct.
From where?
So it goes from Riverton to Lander, Fort Washakie, Crowheart, on into Du Bois.
Oh, that's a long bus ride.
It is. It's an incredibly long bus ride, but it's Fremont County. I mean, it's a service area that's larger than 6 states. So it is by far, and I venture to say it's probably the longest bus route in the United States, probably.
What's the bus leave?
It leaves Riverton at 5 o'clock. And it arrives at the Du Bois Rodeo at 7 o'clock, provides intercity transportation there in Du Bois from 7 to 9:30. And then 9:30 it returns the trip. So the unfamiliarization with public transportation, you know, we're slowly dipping the toe in the pool. By no means, you know, the consistency of year-round service is expensive, but something we could focus on summer just to kind of build that good faith too. Is that Du Bois is completely unfamiliar, used to not receiving any services from WRTA. Same with Pavilion and Shoshoni as well. I outlined in the 5-year plan kind of an execution of how we get there. And the state is incredibly supportive. So much so that they granted us a 5% increase on our grants this year when many other entities within the state did not get any.
See, you forgot to mention one other thing. They recognized you as a nomination. You talk about that.
Okay, sure. So the essentially when I came in 8 months ago, I established a 5-year plan of an optimistic approach to how we can extend service to the Fremont County area. Again, largest service for one public transportation entity in the entire state. And with that, you need a pretty solid plan of how you're going to outreach that. So we established kind of a fiscal year by fiscal year approach of our expansion and how we're going to reallocate our existing resources, which are currently occupied by fulfilling contracts for service, et cetera. Anyways, I presented this plan to the state and they were incredibly supportive of it. They felt it was a fantastic application of rural public transportation, so much so that they nominated WRTA as Agency of the Year. Haven't won yet, but on August 13th, we'll know. The Y-Trans conference is in Riverton this year, and so Tuesday evening will be the award ceremony. We'll see if we won. But it's a incredible honor just to be nominated. I spoke with my former employer and he said that he's been a Y-Trans board member for a long time and never before seen such quick transition for support from the state. So there's nothing, I'll deflect, boasting my own ego any day, for just the fact that seeing the state rally behind a single entity so quickly is phenomenal. There's fantastic potential here in Fremont County. And I've said it to the staff there at WRTA, and I'll say it to everybody else, is that we have the opportunity to become the most impactful, by far the largest, but the most impactful rural transportation entity in the state of Wyoming. And my intention is to see it through.
So how are you selling this to the public? Because you have a vote coming up.
Yeah. Public transportation is a difficult sell, especially in a rural community that just exudes independence. Everybody needs a car, but where it starts is kind of building that trust with the community. We've launched several initiatives. One of them is the Safe Ride program. The Safe Ride program provides night and weekend service. It's essentially in an attempt to reduce the amount of alcohol-related impaired driving incidents. So it offers that service to individuals within Lander and Riverton. That's a start. Ridership's low. It's anticipated to be low in such a rural setting where independence is incredibly, a key part of the culture here. But we just start by guaranteeing our presence. It's the same with our fixed route operations. If you took our ridership right now, a lot of the public is wary, but we could do that by making the usage as incredibly easy as we possibly can. We're working on even our digital fare collection system. We're working on that. It takes a little bit to get apps implemented, but now you don't even need to carry cash. You can just download an app, click the button, show the bus driver, you're on the bus. If you ease of use to promote usability for public transportation, and just outreach and engagement constantly. Whatever we can do, what events we can be at as public transportation, educating the public. It is an incredibly freeing service when you know how to use it. As Mayor Highsmith mentioned, I spent the last 10 years operating the University of Wyoming's transit system. And every year we try to be better than last until I really couldn't find any more efficiencies to be made. So then I had to come down here where you do the same thing. It's a long, slow process to infuse that culture of public transportation into a rural setting. And it takes multiple different applications, but a lot of it is just building that confidence and guaranteeing the public that, even if you don't ride it, we're still going to be there when you do. I hope that answers your question.
It did.
And I can add to Shoshoni is on FY26's plan, which is a far lighter lift than Du Bois. Du Bois and Shoshoni, we kind of tied them in together as part of this expansion plan on the same route. It's the same conversation I have with Pavilion. I'm willing to have with each municipality. How do we tailor that service to fit the community needs? Maybe it's not a dedicated Monday through Friday service out to Shoshoni. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a Thursday through Sunday, right? Weekend shopping, commuter service. Maybe it's more of an on-demand or a microtransit situation. All of those modal applications are kind of fluid and can be discussed to tailor to the community needs. The proposed addition to public transportation funds or ground transportation funds make something like this incredibly possible. Our grant funding is there. The state has made the light pledge to match it. They kind of extended the 5% this year. Now it's up to us to leverage those dollars at different matching percentages. And so the money's there, the state's behind us. Now we just kind of have to pony up on our end of how we're going to make it happen.
It's I think we got a optimistic look for ground transportation.
Absolutely.
And be a benefit to the county. Chris, do you know, did we have the transit over here for one of the hot summer nights or something? 2 years ago, last
2 years ago, yeah, we actually paid WR.
Okay.
I think it's $350 they charge us for 3 runs back and forth. If I remember right.
Okay. I know I was last year at the Brew Fest in Lander, and that bus was busy, and they did a great job. They'd even giving you free hot dogs when you got on. I almost went on to get a hot dog or two and make a couple laps, and
Yeah, we won't be doing that again. It can cause a lot of attention, but you know, that Brewfest in Lander set Safe Ride record for the cumulative total of ridership for Safe Ride from the previous year. So it surpassed all of the previous year's total. So it was impressive. And the community really came through showing that they're ready to kind of take that leap to public transportation. Safe Ride's a really easy, easy use service. You just hop on, you can walk up, you can call any of the above, but what it showed is at least that community was incredibly ready to receive that service. And so we'll keep pushing that on that demand response side. But while we continue to expand our commuter route services, which is, what I'm keenly interested in extending to Shoshoni if possible. Just from my public transportation background, I can throw some nationwide statistics of economic development, nationally. For every dollar that was dedicated to public transportation rendered 5-time return to national GDP. It is an economic driver. I'm very excited to see what it can do in such a rural setting. So that's, public transportation excites me. I'm probably one of the weirdest guys you'll ever meet because of that. And I'll talk about it for hours and you'll get a glazed over look. And so, hey, you can ask Mayor Highsmith. He's had to sit through many a conversation.
No, they're doing well. It's, any more questions from the council? It's,
Really appreciate the clarifying information.
yeah, we're gonna have a vote on it on the 8th. We're gonna, FCAG will have a vote on it. And one of the reasons we had this new information out and everything, wanted to get this out to everybody. And Shoshoni was 50-50 on, I just wanted to make sure we still had the confidence of the council before I felt it was too important. That we need to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And I wanted to, there was 3 members not being there, and one of them was the county and one was Du Bois. And I wanted them to have a chance to be there and be heard. So we postponed the vote till then. We're having a special meeting the 8th to address it and to move forward. So please go
I
ahead.
might just provide, thank you, Mayor, just some additional clarification on the procedural
Yes.
application of this. So when we went around to each entity, we were receiving the approval and authorization of your representative. The MOU specifically states that the vote has to be had at an FCAG or similar meeting, just to formalize the governing
Right.
body's support. So kind of as we've worked through this process, we're now, in our final stint to try and gain commission approval, commission or unanimous consent. But at this time on the 8th, will be the official vote in
Right.
finalization of the modification, kind of bringing this full circle. A lot of it was confusing. A lot of it, Riverton put me on the spot, asked to clean it up. And so cleaning it up a bit on the 8th is when we will finalize everything and get it all cleaned up. So hopefully that provides some additional clarification, kind of where we're at in the process.
So everybody comfortable and just continue to move forward. Any other questions, thoughts? So anyway, I'm authorized to sign that MOU, and that'll be what I will do then. Just want to make we're all comfortable with that. Okay. Appreciate the clarification. This new information we got, I think was helpful. And it's like I said, it's gives us plenty more ammunition to talk to our people of Shoshoni why we're supporting this. Because we didn't get approved. Shoshoni voted against it last time, and I actually thought they were going to vote for it because I seen positive at the senior center. Seemed like that was more positive than negative there. It was supposed to. I thought that's a tough crowd, so if it's gonna a little unpopular, it'll work, but it didn't. So, but anyway, I think it's good for the county. Yeah.
So, and we, as the PAC, are gonna come give an information session to the senior center
Yes.
after the 8th, when we know exactly
You
what the
bet.
MOU looks like. And then if you have other entities or groups that you're involved with that would like to have a presentation by the PAC to answer any questions, we're more than willing to come in and talk with them as well. Thank you for your
Very good. Well, I
time.
appreciate the information. Very informative, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for your hard work. Anybody have any other questions?
Nope.
Can I have a
Make a
motion to
motion.
adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by, you're pretty good at that. Councilwoman Harkin, motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
I heard Mike Demick make that, oh. Councilman Stetler, second that. Any further discussion? None being, all in favor, say aye. Aye, hold the same. Motion passed on the affirmative at approximately 8:34-ish. Thank you. Thanks for coming.